Good morning. Good morning, Carroll County. It's Thursday, March 11th, on a beautiful Thursday. They say it's going to get up to 72 degrees. So
Motion to adjourn.
that's right. So, although hope is not the course of action, I do hope that this weather continues and we start getting to get outside, really enjoy the family and friends and neighbors as we continue to move towards a sense of normalcy. As we do every open session, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Afterwards, take a moment of silence and opportunity for you to reflect on the things that are important to you. With that, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Again, I just love that pledge. Let's start with Priority Carol. Commissioner Boucher.
Is it picture
Surprise
time?
me right out of the gate. Thank you very much. Good morning, gentlemen and colleagues. This week I did it. Here we go. We have the tour of the Bullfrog Bridge Road. I originally scheduled it with Commissioner Wance, but that's his district, so I got permission to be out there. He had something else that day, but he did go out and see it. This is a wonderful historical bridge. Let me read off some information about it. It spans over the Monocacy up in District 4 border in Frederick County. The bridge was built in 1908 by the York Bridge Company and rehabilitated in 1996. It is on the National Registry of Historic Places. It spans 183 feet across the Monocacy River, which is Frederick County's longest historic bridge, and the top chord is 30 feet above the deck, and the bridge is a rare example of camelback truss design. And it is a single lane road with wooden planks. I'll ride my motorcycle across this. It's real neat, get to rumbling. And the reason I'm paying so much attention to this because it's a marvel of engineering and metal fabrication, which is my background. And I was fortunate enough to get out there thanks to our Deputy Director, Doug Brown, who corresponded with Frederick Department of Public Works. Thanks to Christopher Lenoche for going out there with me, and Jeff Cassingway, who oversaw the thing. And a special thanks to Amanda Radcliffe there, who's with the Frederick County Department of Public Works. Go back to that last photo, and I'll show you how critical the bridge inspections is. There it is. That is what was failing. That is one of 4 mount points that hold that truss bridge across the river. And thank goodness we have bridge inspections, because this would have led to a catastrophic failure and potential loss of life. So I'm very grateful for all the engineers and staff we have out there in both Frederick and Carroll County. I also learned on this site visit that the border of Carroll and Frederick County along the Monocacy River has alternating responsibility for the bridges spanning the river. Like the first bridge will be Carroll, the next bridge downriver will be Frederick, and it alternates back and forth. So Frederick County has responsibility for this bridge, but we have wonderful partnerships for New England County to oversee the public safety on these bridges. So I want to thank everyone for that tour. And I really love for people, once this bridge gets fixed, if you can ride out there, check out this historic bridge. When you're out there in Commissioner Wance's district, visit Tawny Town, patronize the local establishments, check out the stores, get some food. It's a wonderful ride and trip to be out there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm very grateful to Chris Swam and Matt Arnold, who put together the coverage of this to capture it for a memory. And thank you for everyone. Have a great day.
Okay, Commissioner Weaver.
Yeah, last night I attended the Board of Ed meeting. I just wanted to, they outlined one of the, I'm not going to say credit recovery, but that's about it for a lot of students. Could be up to 6,000 students identified that are going to need additional help recovering from the year off or the difference in school, I guess, for the last year. And they're actually, the outline for it was phenomenal. July through August, 5-day-a-week recovery program with no more than 14 students in a class, and then carry it into the fall and into maybe like a Saturdays. And then it's a 2-year process, not just 1 year. They're going to do this to get all students caught up and to the levels they should be on. So I just wanted to, it was just the outline of the program. They're building it as they go presently for this summer, but it's going to take a lot of coordination with teachers, with other people, but a phenomenal program that'll come together. And I think they have their COVID money help to use in this way. It should be good for all the students in the county. And of course, it's going to be voluntary, but they don't know, they're just getting the process put together. And I just want to applaud the group from the boosters from Manchester Valley for raising, I think, $50,000 for their sign up there. And Matt Collender and group, good luck. Continue working on that. And I give them a lot of credit for spending the time and effort and in the community. The whole community comes together to support that. So thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Frazier.
I say that's great about that sign and community coming together and raising that much money. That's fantastic. Things like that really show what Carroll County is all about. First thing I want to mention is that I was at a ribbon cutting yesterday for 310 Tempering. They do tempered glass. What impressed me most about this is that you had the CEO and the president there, and they spoke, and then they said, "Does anyone else want to speak?" And a couple of the workers came up and they just said how great this company was to work for. It's a fantastic place. They love everything about it, and it's amazing. Is that they flew their original plant is in Kentucky. They flew 80 of their workers up for this so they could see the new plant, so they could all feel like a part of it. As I'm talking to I don't know if it was the president and CEO, because I did talk to both of them afterwards, but I said, talking to one of them, what struck me is something that he said, we have 80 families that we're responsible for putting food on the table. And he's talking about the 80 workers that they have in Kentucky. That's just a tremendous way to look at something. I was very, very impressed by this company. I asked them for a job. They're considering it now. They're considering my resume. So it's probably going to be a no. But it's just a company. I'm just very, very happy that they're here. They could have picked anywhere up and down the East Coast. Our Economic Development Department and the State of Maryland Commerce Department worked together to get them here. And the company, I was just so impressed with talking to those two. I really was. Now, something that, and I guess the next thing is Friday, as everyone knows, we're going to be opening up a lot more according to the governor's orders. Full capacity at restaurants and retail establishments, everything, which is fantastic, as long as we're keeping our social distancing, as long as we're keeping masks on. I think these are steps that need to be taken, and they're steps that are taken with safety in mind. I'm very, very happy that this is happening. But what bothers me is in our school system, we're not keeping the social distancing according to the plan. The plan says to the greatest extent possible. And what does that mean? To me, that means when they can do it, they do it. When they can't, they can't. It just bothers me that if you're going to a restaurant or retail establishment or wherever else you're going, they can have full capacity as long as you're social distancing and you're wearing masks. In schools, to the greatest extent possible. It's just, I hate keep bringing it up, but it does bother me. But I'll say, even though we're moving forward, we still need the mask. We still need social distancing. We still need to wash the hands, because if you notice, I think it was today's paper, the numbers have ticked up a little bit in Carroll County. Something we got to watch out for. It's a great trend. I want to still trend down, but it's not over yet. And with the good weather's coming. I have a sailboat tie on today, by the way. Good weather's coming. All this stuff is coming in, and just want to relax a little bit. I understand. Believe me, I want to do it too. But you need the mask, you need the hand wash, you need your social distancing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wance.
Good morning. To couple things on my colleagues. Commissioner Weaver, you're right. I saw that program that they're doing. We're going to have to pay very attention to that. While it could be phenomenal, the amount of staff that they are asking for is phenomenal. And while we need to pay attention, because yesterday, and I think Commissioner Frazier was on there with me for a little while, MACo conducted an education funding seminar, if you will. And all across the state, these public school systems are asking for phenomenal, and I'll use your word, Commissioner Weaver, phenomenal amounts of money on top of the phenomenal amounts of COVID relief money that they've gotten. Accountability is going to be very important because I would like to know where all this money is going. And I'll leave it at that. Commissioner Frazier, I agree with you on the social distancing. It's interesting. Restaurants are going to open, but they still have to social distance. So I'm not sure what that exactly means because they can open up full capacity, but they still got to be 6 feet apart with their tables. So I think folks need to remember that that doesn't mean that these restaurants are going to be, boom, all back open again. It's sort of catch-22. What does full capacity mean? Well, when you're 6 feet table distanced apart, I don't think that's full capacity. So I question that part of what the governor said this week. And certainly, you're right. We have to keep the importance of moving forward with best practices. Today marks the year that this was declared a pandemic. A couple other quick things. Next Thursday in Priority Carroll, we're going to be paying tribute to a gentleman. I know Commissioner Weaver knows him, Mr. Carroll Bish. The Bish Farm has been listed as a Maryland Century Farm, and that's a huge deal. We don't have a whole lot of those, and we're going to pay tribute to Mr. Bish next Thursday in Priority Carroll. We've got some proclamations that he received, and our own Kim Frock is very near and dear to the Bish family as well, and she's going to be participating in that. So we'll be doing that next Thursday. But until then, congratulations to the Bish family and certainly to the Frock family as well. I know we don't have legislative today, but two quick things I want to cover. Yesterday in the education seminar, there is a Kerwin fix-up bill. It's a brand new bill that was just put in 2 days ago. It's House Bill 1372, Senate Bill 965. That's in an attempt to fix the money issue that is associated with Kerwin. Mike Fowler and I spoke several times over the last 24 hours, and he'll be all over that for us next week. And another troubling thing, when you think we got extra money, it appears as if the community college bargaining bill will pass. And that's going to mean hundreds of thousands of dollars to us for Carroll Community College, because they'll be able to at least have 4 bargaining units at Carroll Community College. There's one good thing in there that I hope sticks. We wouldn't have to do this until 2024. So we've got to keep an eye on that, but it appears as if that indeed is going to pass. And finally, so as not, of course, nobody will probably miss me, but in about an hour, I'm going to leave here, and I will watch the rest of the session as it's recorded. But I want to give a huge congratulations out to our folks in law enforcement. Many of you will remember there was a suspicious package that exploded in the Lineborough area about 5-6 months ago, and that investigation has been ongoing. They actually made an arrest 2 days ago, and there's a press conference today at the North Carroll facility because this, I got to tell you, when you hear the details of this, it's a Dateline episode. It's unbelievable the amount of work and the amount of expertise and professionalism that our sheriff's department, in conjunction with the FBI and many other partners, went through to make an arrest. And today, they're going to have a press conference at 11 a.m., and I'll be representing county government at that press conference, and more to come on that. But I want to give a huge congratulations out to our men and women in law enforcement. They did an incredible job, and it just goes to show what kind of talent we've got here in Carroll. And I'll have more to come on that later on. Commissioner Rothstein, thank you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Jump
And
in real quick.
yeah, please.
Commissioner Wentz, I appreciate the fact that you mentioned on air that I had to leave a meeting 15 minutes early yesterday because I had a different obligation. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I saw you, and then you were gone. And I'm like, wait a minute, where'd Fraser go? But you heard the nucleus of all that conversation.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
you know, I was glad. Listen, I was glad you were there for 45 minutes, Dennis. Come on, man. I'm glad you were there.
Threw you under the bus.
Oh, he threw him under the bus, backed over and
You
went
ran
forward.
over me a couple times.
So, okay. Yeah, the press conference is important, and I appreciate the representation there. The comment you made about our law enforcement, it's often unseen, the tooth to tail ratio. What we see are the teeth. We see the folks that are in the cars, that are in uniform, but the tail, the logistics and the work that goes on, and the efforts in partnerships from our sheriff's department across the spectrum to figure out the solution to sometimes very complex problems does not get recognized. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Wentz. A shout out to my daughter. It's her birthday tomorrow. I'm wearing her tie from University of York, so I'm happy with that. We did a town hall Tuesday evening. I was joined by Mr. Ed Singer, who will join us in just a couple minutes to talk about the COVID-19. A shout out and appreciation to both Chris Swam, Chris Weinbrenner, and our entire team in allowing us to have that town hall flawlessly and some, I think, very good responses the next day. We got a handful of folks calling in because they heard of the town hall. That's what it's all about, is neighbors taking care of neighbors and the community response. There will be a town hall this afternoon and this evening at 1 p.m. and at 6 p.m. dealing with Piney Run. And what it's focused on is the study that was done by AECom that we, the county government, contracted, will be laid out, and it will be hosted by our land resource management. If there's interest, please call in or check into that. And the sites I know are posted on social media along with our webpage. A lot of really good information for you to listen and learn on what is happening in Piney Run. And then also, if there are opinions, and I know I saw in the paper this morning a very large article about Piney Run. I appreciate that. This will give a little bit more, I won't say credibility, but facts associated with Piney Run and what we've been doing to date and what some of the options are moving forward. Sitting up here with the five of us, it's not necessarily our opinion to provide opinions to actions that we are not responsible for. So whether it's the education or other things going on down in Annapolis or things going on down in the Capitol, but it is the opportunity to share some of the decisions that were made. And one of them was the American Rescue Plan. It was the $1.9 trillion allocated across the country in response to COVID-19. And specifically, I just want to address that the county will be receiving at this point 32.6 million, and the municipalities in total will receive about 43.8 million. There are criteria on how this money is to be used and how it's not to be used. One important piece about this, it is not to be used to offset any taxes. And that's an important piece of this. We all received the information. Our staff is going to be digesting this, coming up with course of action on how to allocate that money. And it also gives us a longer time period to use that money as opposed to the last funds that were given to us. So more to follow on that. I just want to throw that out there as this is I believe, a priority for Carroll County. Let's see if there's anything else. Again, a shout out to the community focusing on a problem over Manchester Valley High School and coming up with a solution very similar to Freedom Elementary with the playgrounds. The community rallied around and said, we have a problem. It's not to be funded by the schools or by the county. So let's figure out how to come up with a solution. And they, I think at this point, have raised over $25,000 to build a playground for Freedom Elementary. So again, it's neighbors to neighbors and community rallying around, coming up with the solutions. So I definitely applaud them. Oh, the last thing is you got to give appreciation where it's due. The town hall on Tuesday, Senators Hester, Katie Hester, and Justin Reedy. I was joined by them along with Delegates Krebs and Rose on the phone calls on Monday, and then the participation on Tuesday. So I really just want to give a shout out to the team in looking out for how we can continue to move forward with COVID-19 and the vaccines. Okay, unless there's anything else for Priority Carol, next on the agenda is focusing on the state of emergency. We've been doing this every 30 days and the importance of a state of emergency being put in place, and by our by the rules, we have to say whether we want to continue this or not. My impression on the state of emergency, I'm going to open it up, but I figure I want to throw this out. My impression at this point is not to continue the state of emergency, but to show that we are moving in the right direction. But in order to do that, we need to really reinforce wearing the masks. We are really here to enforce adhering to the laws. We don't make these laws about wearing masks. These masks will be worn in public facilities. These masks will be worn in, the grocery stores, government buildings. There is no question about that. We will maintain 6 feet distance, 6 foot distance. If you cannot, the masks are to be worn even while we're maintaining the 6 foot distance. We as leaders got to continue to adhere to that. I don't want to be so parochial about this, but there are no exceptions. And, we're not ones that created these laws. These are laws that are put in place through executive orders from our governor. So again, I know I sound parochial about it, but it's very important because that's what got us to where we are today, with the governor making his decisions and opening up more retail and restaurants and getting back to a sense of normalcy. Getting back to that sense of normalcy, my recommendation is that we do not extend the state of emergency, and I will open it up at that point. So apologize if I rambled on a little bit too much on that. So any thoughts, comments?
President, was that a motion to be seconded or just opening discussion?
No, there's no motion involved in this. It's at this point of discussion on thoughts on whether a state of emergency should be continued or not.
We've been in this I guess for about a year now, and state of emergency affects, some of our, I guess, funding and some things happening. That's coming through. I hope with the vaccinations stepping up, we're going to see, it's going to take months yet, but I think we at least see the light at the end of the tunnel that this can be, we will have control of it instead of it having control of us. So I agree with you. The state of emergency is not needed, I think, to be extended at this time. But we still have to get ahead of this whole pandemic. The masks, the hand washing, the distance are all critical to this. Now, a couple other things going in our favor is the weather. Summertime's coming. People are going to be outside more. And last year, we saw a real decline in cases in the summer months. But here again, when people started coming indoor in the fall, it started to go up again. So if we can get ahead of this, keep wearing the mask, keep doing what we have to do, I really don't see any reason to stay in the state of emergency at this time.
Any other thoughts, comments?
I have to say I agree. I don't have to say anything else. You guys have covered it pretty well. So I'll just say I agree.
I'm in agreement as well. And I like the leadership of President Rothstein on this, that getting out of the state of emergency locally is good, but we still have the rules above us coming down from the governor to adhere to. So I think this is a brilliant potential compromise. I don't think it will affect us in the funding. I know originally there was a lot of talk about how we had to stay in it for the funding and all these other peripheral issues that would affect. But I think we're through that now, and I think that's probably what's motivating some of my colleagues to be willing to come to this point in their decisions. So I'm in full support of President Rothstein's idea to get out of state of emergency.
Well, I appreciate that, and I see Steve chiming in, but this isn't about a compromise. This is about, taking appropriate risk in a course of action that I think is moving in the right direction. So that's at least my thoughts. But Commissioner Wance?
Yeah, so I'm going to be the dissenting argument here. Surprise to everyone, I guess because of my public safety background. Everything else that we've done has followed the governor's direction and his team the whole time through this. So now I would assume that as a result of us going out on a limb and not being part of that, we'll probably be one of the only counties that's doing this, that we are now setting the precedents that we will not be following the governor's direction and his team like we have in the past. I think it's too soon. I suspect that the governor, because of the decisions that he made a couple days ago, will probably be doing something with the state of emergency within the next 30 days. And I'm perplexed at why all of a sudden now we feel as if we don't need to follow his guidelines. I get the thoughts that we've got to continue doing this, but when this is the headline in the paper tomorrow, the masks will come off, the distancing will stop, and we're going to see an uptick, and I hope I'm wrong. But my only point here is we have consistently followed the governor's guidelines and his team's parameters, and now we're not. So that's fine. You guys, it's a majority here, but I want to go on record as disagreeing with that direction.
Okay. It's first of all, it's not about us guys. It's about decisions. I don't think
Well, what do you mean? You want to explain that? You want to explain that a little bit, Commissioner Rothstein, because it's the five of us making the decision.
I know.
So I want to get into that a little bit because I'd love to
Sure.
debate that.
I will. And what I'm saying is, referring to people as guys, it's just one of those pet peeves. I don't like sitting up here saying guys and gals, but that's just me, I guess. What I believe in is making decisions and accepting what risk is necessary in making those decisions. We are not disagreeing with anything that the governor has said in the executive order. We are not. And there's no doubt in anybody from any one of us in making that. The state of emergency that has been put in place is allowing the governor to do certain actions. The state of emergency for the county to just adhere to our governor saying, since he's doing it, we're doing it. There have not been, unless somebody can say what decisions need to be made while we're in a state of emergency, or that the state of emergency will allow us to make those decisions, that should be discussed. So we can have that discussion. If we want to go back into a state of emergency, we can also go back into a state of emergency if necessary.
Why would you go back?
If we need to.
Well, then why get out of it?
Why be in it?
Because it's consistent. It's consistent with the state, which is what we've been doing the whole time.
I agree. And what's most important, being consistent with the state, is that we adhere to his executive orders. And that is wearing the mask, and that is keeping social distancing. The state of emergency does not take that away. And that should be the headline in whatever paper should be written. It's not about a state of emergency whether we wear a mask or not. The law is we will wear masks. The law
Well,
is we will keep social distance.
Until you start writing the headlines, you know that's what it's going to be.
I get what you're saying. And as soon as the governor on Tuesday said what he said effective Friday, you go into some of the restaurants and bars and they were packed in Maryland. I absolutely 100% disagree because they're not being enforced. So I know what you're saying, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. What I believe is we as Carroll County should be making the right steps in moving forward. And one of those right steps has to do with this. I'm not, so animate about a state of emergency one way or the other, but I am very animate about the executive orders and the laws. So that's my thoughts. It's not a whatever is going to be decided. This will be decided, and it will be what the Board of Commissioners say. And I think that's what, should be said in the headlines. And you're right, I don't write the headlines. So, any other thoughts on this?
Now, that's fine. We can debate this till the cows come home, but I just think in remaining consistent with all the things that we have done over this period of time, it makes sense to continue. Full well knowing that I believe that the governor is probably going to lift that state of the state emergency very shortly. I just hope that, and I hate to use the word hope because you attack me every time I use that.
I don't attack you on.
But I'm very optimistic that the citizens will not take the headline and put us in a place where we don't need to be. I mean, we're going to hear from Maggie today. I believe that while the numbers are down, there has been upticks lately. So we've got to continue that. So I know what the headline's going to say, and I hope I'm wrong about what's going to happen. So
I know, and
yeah,
it's not the,
I will not be agreeing with this at all. I think this is the wrong move. I think we should remain consistent with the state, and I'll just leave it at that. So I know where this is going.
Yeah.
So I just want to go on record as saying that I'm in disagreement. I believe we should remain consistent with the state until such time as we all feel comfortable moving forward together.
no, and I agree with you in the sense that we should absolutely remain vigilant. And yeah, there was something else I was going to share, but I forgot.
I just want to emphasize, since you're pausing, wear the mask, social distance, hand wash. Not being in a state of emergency has nothing to do with those three things. Let's make sure we still adhere to those policies. That's what has to be done.
That's right. The biggest reason, or a major reason, why the governor is in a state of emergency is allow him and giving him the authorization to moving the National Guard into positions that he needs to move the National Guard. That along with requesting FEMA support and federal support are the two major reasons, or major reasons that the state remains in a state of emergency. And I don't think he should take that away until he's confident that the National Guard is not to be used or anything to be federalized. So,
So
okay.
then why were all the counties in the state of emergency then, based on that? Then you're saying that it was,
Yeah, I think,
then you're saying that it really wasn't necessary for all the counties to be in their state of emergencies either.
right. I think it was a message. I think it was the counties sending a message that we need to stay vigilant, and that, that's, like you said, I think we're going in the right direction. Whether we do it now, unfortunately, a decision has to be made about the state of emergency today. If it was in 2 weeks, maybe it'd be easier, but I think we're taking risk.
That's my point. That's my point. I think we're taking a risk and pulling it now. So we're going full circle with the conversation here. So
No, we're not.
Enough debate.
Oh, I don't think it's enough debate. I think it's good discussion. Yeah, Maggie?
Actually, I was going to let Valerie go first. Both of us would like to say a little something.
Thank you, Maggie. Just there are a lot of moving pieces still going on with this particular response. And just keep in mind that the state of emergency for the county also has to do with all of the activity that flows from the activation of the emergency operations plan. The emergency operations plan is being utilized. We still have lots of response activity going on. Not to say that we absolutely need the state of emergency to continue that, but the activation and the continuation of the state of emergency does allow for the full activation and response coordination of all of the entities within the county that are still responding and will continue to respond to this emergency. We do have National Guard assets we have requested from the state that we are receiving assistance from for the vaccination clinics. So that is something that as we ask for assistance from the state for emergency response, being in a state of emergency is a precursor for some of those types of activities. So just keep in mind that it's not just not just staying in line with the governor's orders. Obviously, the governor's orders apply no matter whether we're in a state of emergency or not. I just wanted to make sure that we make the point that there are other pieces of the need for the state of emergency that are not necessarily what we've already talked about today.
Okay.
Will we continue to move forward with all of the things that are going on? Sure, we're going to do that. But the state of emergency does allow us to have a higher level of coordination and cooperation amongst all of the agencies because the emergency operations plan for the county is in effect.
You're definitely making an argument and you're swaying me in a different direction on the needs of a state of emergency. So I appreciate that. And it's not necessarily a debate, and I'm sharing this with all, on what is just right and wrong, but what is the best, course of action? What is the best, not just message, but action should be taken for the county? And I appreciate that. You shared things that I did not think through. And trust me, I'm the first to say, if I'm wrong and feel like I'm wrong, I'm going to say it. So I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Valerie, what is the higher level of coordination this gives us if we stay in the state of emergency compared to not?
Well, for example, and I'll use the Department of Public Works as one of the major examples. When the emergency operations plan is activated, the Department of Public Works is our resource support coordinating function lead. So a lot of the activity, and we've talked about warehousing and PPE before, but right now a lot of the activity centers around vaccination clinics. Our Department of Public Works is taking on that extra role and that extra level of coordination with the health department, because the health department is the lead for public health and medical, to get those types of activities done over and above what we're already doing day to day. So that's the type of coordination. It's a tighter coordination to get things done than in this particular time frame during a state of emergency and during a response than would be in place probably, day to day, because most of the time Public Works and the health department do not work as closely together as they do now. And that's just one example. There are many, and I don't think I need to belabor that point unless you really want some more detail. We can certainly do that. But that's the type of thing that the emergency operations plan being in effect allows us to do more readily, if that makes sense.
Does the health department have other issues from this if it would be lifted?
So I'll weigh in. I think Ed did talk to me about this yesterday, and I think that the logistical issues that would affect the health department are the same that Valerie's describing. I mean, I think that we we are definitely reliant on the tight and careful coordination with community partners in order to accomplish the goals that we have for vaccination and for the many other parts of the response that are still ongoing, the testing and the PPE distribution and the many other things that we're still doing. And so I do think that logistically that is important for us. And then Ed just wanted to mention the other part of this really is the message that we're sending. And he does feel that lifting the state of emergency is premature. And that really sends the message that the pandemic is over, or that this is over, and it really isn't. We do feel like we're closer to the end of the tunnel, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel a little more clearly, but we're not there yet. And there are still variants in the way, and there are still some uncertainties. And so he really felt like, both for logistical reasons and for sort of messaging and optics reasons, he really felt like this wasn't the appropriate time to lift the state of emergency, and wanted me to communicate that.
So I appreciate that, both of you, and it's going to lead into a little bit more discussion. We're going to move on.
We have to April the 12th to make this decision, correct?
Real quick, Valerie, do you believe that the logistical issues are not just tied to the state decision? So in other words, if you felt that we still needed to stay in a state of emergency, even if the state moved out of it, because of the logistical issues, you would come back to us and still recommend the continuance of a state of emergency to allow us to do the things we need in the county?
Yeah, that's what we
Okay.
would need to do. We would have to take a
Yeah.
look at what the specific needs are in our county, and we would be asking you as the Board of Commissioners to determine what's best and during that situation for our county. And I will say, in a month,
Okay. Yeah.
we're in a completely different situation now than we were a month ago. We could be in a completely different situation a month from now than we are today. And I personally think we will be.
Okay. I'm one to listen to the subject matter experts. I know what I want to do as a leader in the county in showing that we are moving in the direction, but we also have to,
We have to April the 12th, I
Right.
think, to make this decision.
I don't know,
Is that correct?
where does that come from? April the
It's on
12th.
our briefing paper.
Oh.
Expires April 12th. Is
You
that?
read the briefing
Are we
paper?
supposed to
Yes, I
agree?
did.
Weaver?
Done everybody? But I think we
Yes,
have
it
some
does.
time to make that decision here, and doesn't have to be
No.
made now. I think we have Roberta on now.
No, we
No.
have to the 13th of March.
No, this is March 13th. It's a 30-day too, so we have to make it now to go for the next 30 days.
Oh, okay.
It expires on the April 12th.
Oh, expires.
The
okay.
next one was.
It says expires, so.
Okay, so,
If you extend the state of emergency today, the next,
Right.
that will expire on April 12th.
okay, so with all of that said, I don't want to say disregard anything I said from state of emergency in the beginning, but take that into conversation. And Commissioner Wentz, your points are very well taken, except for saying guys. No, your points are really well taken in the sense that this is a very important discussion. And I do hope that the newspaper does pick this up about the importance of having this discussion, that we are not just going to move on something just because it's there, but it's why are we doing it? Is it for all the right reasons? I have a half a dozen very specific points that both Valerie and Maggie, you brought forward. Some were also, shared from Commissioner Wentz, again, from that leadership role, especially when it comes to messaging. This is very important, but that's the message that has to get across to the paper, that we're not just going to lie down because somebody says this is the way it should be done. We're wearing masks because it's the right thing, not just because it is just the law, but it's the right thing to do. It's getting us in the right direction, and it's also the law. So these are, I think, very important conversations.
And I do believe that we're talking about another 30 days here. I personally also believe, as Valerie does, that by April the 12th, we're going to be in a much different place. And I just think right now, I continue to say this, we've been consistent with the state, number one. And number two, the optics would just be huge right now and would be such a negative. I appreciate the fact that that my colleagues, and I'll get rid of that other G word, apparently that you don't like, Commissioner Rothstein. I'll use colleagues and folks. I appreciate the fact that you have, that you're putting out that, oh, we got to continue to wear masks. We got to continue to social distance, wash hands. Of course we do. But if we drop this today, those optics will get lost in the translation. Absolutely. And I just can't believe that we can't hold on, remain consistent with the state until at least April the 12th.
Well, I definitely think we can. And some of you know I used to be in the Army. And there's a comment about training to standard, not to time. And this shouldn't just be time focused, but it should be standard focused. And in order to maintain the actions that Valerie and Maggie, you shared, along with Steve, what you said, those are the standards. And in order for us to maintain those standards, the state of emergency needs to stay in effect. So maybe I was playing a devil's advocate without knowing I was playing devil's advocate up front. But I needed to get all of this out. And we haven't had this in quite some time. And I think it's a very important message.
And I think Valerie and Maggie, you made legitimate points here that really mind-changing points. So I give you two a lot of credit for pointing those things out to us. And, sometimes we don't get all the facts in time. And a couple weeks is not going to make much difference in this, but it may make a huge difference in the way we look at it in a couple weeks. So thank you.
So maybe Commissioner Wance, we did go 360 because I will make the motion that we remain in a state of emergency for the next 30 days.
Second.
I got a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
If I may jump in,
Please.
I will state that if we're predicting that most likely in 30 days we're going to be in a better position than we are now, then I think the only reason to stay in a state of emergency is this for politics and optics. I'm wondering if the public safety department is in unbearable stress where they have to be in a state of emergency. Are their capacities okay? I mean, what is the justification of maintaining it outside of the optics and the politics, which I'm against? I'm all about lifting this state of emergency for the county, even if it is in contradiction of the state level. Excuse me. As always, the government that governs best governs closest to the people. In this case, it is us. I just don't see the sense in maintaining the state of emergency when all of us are pretty much in agreement that in 30 days we're going to be better off than we are now.
So I think, Commissioner Boucher, I appreciate your comments, but what Ms. Hawkins shared was the emergency operations plan, the coordination internally with DPW, the continuing coordination, the use of National Guard, our emergency responses to actions, also highlighted by Maggie, the logistical issues that the health department is receiving, and also the very important message from the state health department from, Mr. Singer, and what Commissioner Wance also amplified was the messaging that needs to continue to go along for public safety, and to say that we are still within the pandemic and that we will get through this. And so I don't think there's anything actually political about this. At least for me, there's nothing political. This has everything to do with doing what's right. And there's no, at least that's my view. I don't know. I don't deal with politics, even though I sit here. It's more about community and how we're dealing with things. So, okay. Any other further discussion? Comments? No. Okay. As mentioned, I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of remaining to a state of emergency?
I want to support our emergency services and the health department here, for at least for the next 30 days. And here again, thank you for the enlightenment.
Okay, you're not allowed to talk when we're voting. All opposed? Okay, vote 3-2. Motion carries. let's move on. I appreciate this, and I do. I know it took a long time, but I really appreciate the discussion that we had. And I hope that is what is picked up
Okay.
in whatever communications. Is Ed on or Maggie? Do we have the luxury of having you?
You have the luxury of having me today. I just need
Okay.
to share.
You're awesome, and a few shout outs were given to you during the town hall. I know you were monitoring, and you got to be careful because every time I say rock star, there's usually a task that comes associated with it. So, you heard me call you a rock star, and the next thing you know, you had 2 or 3 tasks. So,
Definitely, but we're up to the task, and we did. I would like to tell you the town hall was a big hit. We did have probably almost 60 calls the next day from folks who were just checking in and making sure that they knew that they still needed a vaccination, and we've been able to schedule over half of them already. So we're really working with those folks to make sure that they're getting on the schedule. So. It's been great with the state being able to give us a little bit more of a projection for our number of vaccines each week. We're able to schedule clinics a little bit farther in advance, and that really helps us schedule people and just get people on the books for their vaccination appointment, which is exciting. So I was going to say earlier today, I feel like you don't necessarily need us to come anymore because you already had so you shared a lot of the great messages that I'll be sharing today. Noticed some things that we're going to talk about. So I appreciate how you all stay up on the latest news. So we'll just go right along. So as you had mentioned, this week, there has been a little bit of an uptick in cases. So you'll see that consistently throughout the graphs that I'll show you this morning. Again, just point out in this graph with the probable cases there in orange, they have been really making up a larger percentage of our cases in the last several weeks. And that's just an interesting thing to note, that even though our testing is down, probable that the testing, the antigen testing seems to be going up in proportion. Here's our 14-day rolling average, and you can just see the impact of the last week or so with a little uptick at the end. Here is our graph of all the different age groups, and this is pretty interesting. So the younger age groups, as you can see here, have definitely experienced an uptick in the last couple of weeks. So you'll see the under 18 has gone up. You'll see the 18 to 29 has gone up, and these are smaller groups of people, smaller age ranges. And then even the 30 to 34, I think, is a little, I can't even see it. You'll see that all the younger age groups are going up, and a couple of the older age groups are trending down a little bit. So just an interesting comparison by age. So hospitalizations the hospital has seen a real downturn in the number of COVID patients and PUIs that they're caring for, which has been great. They're still pretty busy, but they have definitely had lower numbers of COVID patients. And so that's something we like to see. Hospitalizations and deaths just kind of keeps an eye on where we are with the different ages and age ranges. Here are the deaths. You can see, as I'm sure you noted, in the last several weeks, we actually had a pretty consistent number of deaths, and that has gone down this past week, which is good. As you know, the deaths tend to lag the cases by a few weeks, and so now we're seeing the results of the lower case numbers that we've seen over the last several weeks. Here's the testing numbers. You'll see after a real dip, we're going back up just a little bit, but the numbers are still quite low compared to the last several months. And we're heading into everybody's favorite topic, vaccinations. Here's the ever-present pyramid, which are finally starting to move down a little bit. So this week, we have several clinics tomorrow that are really kind of wrapping up some of the groups that we've been working hard to complete. So we have another targeted clinic for 1A and 1B, so private schools and childcare in 1B. We have a clinic for higher education tomorrow, a clinic for continuity of government, which is a small number of government officials. We are continuing our clinics for adults 75 and up. We have a large one in South Carroll today, and we're continuing to rotate around the county. So as I said, we have several coming up, Westminster, North Carroll, and Mount Airy in the next couple of weeks, and we're now able to schedule those a little bit out, which is great since we know how many vaccines we're going to be getting, or at least the minimum number we'll be getting each week. I did want to note that all along we've been scheduling folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our 75 plus clinics, and we continue to do that, but we did add this week an interest form for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities on our interest form page. So if there are any individuals in the community who are interested in getting vaccinated, developmental disabilities are a risk factor for COVID, a serious illness from COVID. And so we do want to make sure that those folks are signing up with us. It's only, certain intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's not all physical disabilities, but those folks who are at increased risk due to those health conditions can sign up and come to our clinics. So, and in terms of 1C, we are doing a sort of a soft rollout for the 65 plus age group. We had our Johnson & Johnson clinic last Friday, which was successful. And then we are starting to include folks 65 and up in our 75 and up clinics as spaces available. So as we're scheduling these, we're getting down to the end of our 75 and up list. That's why we really want to put a call out to make sure that people are their friends, neighbors, fellow congregants, any relatives, anybody who's 75 and up in Carroll County who wants to be vaccinated, who hasn't been vaccinated, can call our call center, get an update, get on our schedule. The number is 410-876-4848. And we do want to hear from you and make sure that we're getting those folks in so that we can start opening up to our 65 and up groups. And then lastly, we are just starting to work with agencies and businesses in our community to plan for the essential employee vaccination. So although we do have a list of individual essential employees, we will be reaching out to businesses, larger agencies to help them coordinate vaccination for their employees. Here is our, as the weeks go on, the numbers get smaller. It's harder to read. But you can see here just our pretty consistent use of the vaccinations we've gotten every week. Just to bring to your attention, last week was a little busy because we added the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So you'll see there that we got 300 doses and gave 300 doses. Don't really get extras with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So that's pretty straightforward. As you know, with the Moderna vaccine, we sometimes get extra doses, so the numbers don't always match up. I did want to just note that you'll see that the previous week, the week of 2/21, we had, our numbers of administered are actually higher than our number of allocated doses. And that's because we were borrowing kind of from the week ahead. We had gotten those vaccines in and we were trying to get them out early. And so you'll see the week last week is a little bit lower because we'd already used some of those vaccines the week before. And here's our, I like to call this our sunset chart. Just kind of giving you an update each week on where we are with each of these categories of folks. The numbers keep going up. I did want to mention that, as Ed mentioned on the school board meeting last night, we are getting close to the end of offering vaccinations for our teachers and other staff at CCPS. We have been pretty steadily vaccinating those folks and have another clinic next week. And we're hoping that by the end of March, we've really been able to offer vaccination to everybody in the school system who wishes to be vaccinated. And then just a quick slide update from last week on our tracking of making sure that we are distributing these vaccines equitably and getting to everybody in our population. So you'll see the percentage of vaccinated is pretty similar in our African-American and white population, that we still have a little work to do to reach out to our Hispanic and non-Hispanic Asian populations. And we're doing that in several ways, reaching out to community organizations and individuals who can help us connect with those communities and make sure that they have access to vaccines. And I think that's it. I didn't give you a chance to ask any questions. So if you have any questions, you can ask them now.
Just Maggie, real quick, what is the difference? And I know, and I pretty much know this answer, but I think it's good for the group to understand the numbers you're sharing to what is called Immunet and the state, because the community gets sometimes different numbers than what we're sharing, and they're getting it from different places. So what is Immunet and how is that being used?
So Immunet is a database that collects vaccination data from several sources. So the numbers that we share are primarily health department clinics. And even though we do give out a lot of vaccinations each week and we're getting a lot of vaccine in, we're obviously not the only providers who are offering vaccine in the community. So the Immunet numbers include the hospital vaccines. They include vaccines that are being given at some of the pharmacies and the long-term care homes that we're working with pharmacies. Most of those vaccines are also included there. That's, as with any database, a large database, there are sometimes some discrepancies, and it takes some time sometimes to get all of the data incorporated and included, but basically that Immunet data really includes all of the vaccines that are being given to Carroll County residents and even from other areas, other counties. So that allows us to see how our residents are faring and how they're being vaccinated, if they're being able to be vaccinated here or elsewhere, as long as they're being able to get vaccinated. So that's why, so when you're looking at our numbers, that's what the health department is doing. And those are, primarily for Carroll County residents. But then when we're looking at the Immunet data, we're looking at how Carroll County residents are doing overall in being vaccinated and if there are any areas where we need to pay special attention.
Okay, thanks. Any comments?
Yeah, Maggie, you used to have I can't remember if you had it for us or for the school board, but there was a graph up there that for transmission rates, we were in a yellow, green, red, or whatever happened to be for, you know what I mean? Do you still have that somewhere? Because I'd like to see where it is now since things are going down. And if we don't have it now, maybe next week could see it.
That's one of my favorite graphs, the rainbow graph. Yes, Commissioner Frazier, I can make you a special version. We had really been offering that for the school board. We changed that a little bit because the CDC guidance changed. So that was based on CDC guidance and was showing us where we were in accordance to CDC guidance. And the CDC guidance has changed, but they still definitely have guidance that is meant to inform the opening of schools. And so we haven't created a graph to go along with that, but we do have a slide in the slides for the schools that addresses that. And so I can just tell you for now, just verbally, the positivity rate is good. It's low. It's in the low range for that, for that CDC guidance. But the case rate that we have, which is looking at the number of cases over the last week per 100,000 people in the community, is still substantial. So it's not high, but it's not low. It's still substantial. It's definitely considered. It's not moderate. It's definitely considered substantial. So maybe we can make a rainbow graph that incorporates those new CDC guidelines, so you can kind of see how the CDC is kind of considering our community transmission.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Maggie again.
Hold on one sec, Commissioner Rothstein. Maggie, the headline in the Carroll County Times today, back to headlines again, says that the cases of COVID are increasing at CCPS. I'd like to see some of those charts at some point in a next presentation, just to see where they are and just to give us an idea. I know it's not in our bailiwick, but yet it is, because we're responsible for every citizen here in the county, and not just because there's a disconnect between what the Board of Ed does and what the Board of Commissioners do. But, as we continue to see and hear about, things going down, we see this increase at CCPS just when they're going to be bringing a lot more students back into their facilities on Monday. Just a little troubling that we may want to just follow some of those graphs if you'd share those with us.
Sure, we can certainly do that. And the school system is tracking data in a very different way than we do. So they're really looking at students who are, who are actively involved in school or in the schools, and they kind of, report them while they're actively being quarantined or isolated. And we're of course looking at a broader community level and how that might impact school transmission. But we can certainly bring both of those pieces of information to the slides next week and present them.
With what I can remember about last night's presentation, I think the 18 to 28-year-olds were the uptick, and they had a little uptick with the less than 18. The county had 12, the school board had 12 or so there, but the dashboard, I think, was 40 that people had been exposed, perhaps, I think all around the Westminster area to this. So they look at it a little differently. So those numbers are going to vary, how you collect the data and what, is an outbreak or potentially he's been exposed and where they are. So you can look at their dashboard through CCPS, and I think you'll see a different number compared to what the health department has. But they are communicating this, and Superintendent Lockhart pointed that out last night, the differences, and they do have a few spots that they're concerned about.
Okay, anything else? Maggie, once again, thank you so much, and the entire team. Let's Move on to Fire EMS, Mr. McCoy.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Share my screen here. Chris, if you can make me a presenter.
We hate to do that.
Screen. Okay, well, we're gonna go through the first few slides real quickly, as we have been doing. What we're here today to talk about is a portion of the MOU. One of the items listed is the purchase of the ambulance fleet from the volunteer system, or from the volunteer companies. So we want to highlight reasons for the proposed purchase of the ambulances. There's no action required of you today, as this is just informational only. Current fleet, the volunteers currently own 22 ambulances housed in 13 stations. CC Visa also owns 3 reserve ambulances that are housed at the Public Safety Training Center. And the volunteers currently own all large capital items associated with EMS service delivery, such as the life packs, AEDs, Lucas tools, all the large capital items utilized. So as of today, even come next budget year, we own no equipment, no vehicles, nor personnel are employed or are available at this time to provide any additional EMS service or to assist as needed. Our ambulance purchase proposal, basically the county would contract an appraiser with no local ties. The appraiser that I've approached has been listed as an expert by the court system in ambulance appraising to provide a comprehensive report of all the ambulances in the fleet. The parties would agree on a value, and at that time, the county would purchase the units and the equipment once the personnel are assigned to that station. We would not buy them all at one time. If you hire 2 stations in FY22, we would only buy the ambulances associated with those 2 stations next year. A payment schedule would be developed not to exceed 3 years, and what we would do is have the first payment provided to the stations on execution of the MOU. The appeals process, if we do reach an impasse as far as negotiating and agreeing on a set value, 2 options that are available is that the stations may obtain a second appraisal with negotiation between the 2 parties, or the county would negotiate up to 110% of the appraisal value. The reasons for the proposal, the purchase.
Hey, Bob.
Yes,
if I
sir.
could interrupt you for a second. Go back to that last slide.
Yes, sir.
If there was an impasse, why wouldn't we just go with the second appraisal? Because if you're going to say you're going to go up to 110%, I'm just looking from the devil's advocate here. Why wouldn't every firehouse say we don't agree? That way they're going to get 110% of the appraised value.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things we discussed is we would most likely pay the 110%. The second appraisal could actually provide a number that's well above that 10%. So we wanted to at least provide 2 options. That was one of the questions that the volunteers had asked, is if they could get their own appraisal completed.
Yeah, well, if you have confidence in the person doing the first appraisal, I wouldn't say the second appraisal would be well above 110% unless the person's really making a terrible mistake. Therefore, again, going back to what I just said, every fire company out there is going to say we disagree, and that way they're going to get 110%. It's just, that second part just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Understood.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. The reason for the proposal, the purchase of ambulance provides the ability. I'm sorry, I lost my spot there for a minute. It basically, the purchase of the ambulance provides the opportunities for the county. It would eliminate an employee from having to track where revenues are created, determining the distribution schedule based on where the revenue was created, and making additional financial disbursements throughout the year to each station. It provides a clean process for the county to move forward. The county is transitioning employment responsibilities from the volunteers at their request. The 24/7 funds, which makes up the personnel costs for the volunteers, and the EMS revenues is used by the volunteer to fund the station employees. We also need that funding to employ county employees as they transition over. A lot of stations are also utilizing the 24/7 EMS revenue and dipping into their actual fundraising dollars to make salary. Also provides the opportunity for all vehicles that we own to be insured through the local government insurance trust, which would be a significant savings to assist with the budget shortfall. And the county already funds all costs associated with the vehicle, such as fuel maintenance, insurance, any other issue associated through the volunteer budget process. County also will have the ability to move resources around based on need. They'll have the access to we'll have the access to rotate the fleet between stations to ensure longevity of the units. And it would eliminate disparity between the stations with the purchase of ambulance. And I've provided a couple of examples to show this. With an estimated annual revenue of $4.5 million, what was always proposed was a 75-25 billing split. The 25% portion would equate to $1,125,000 each year, and that would be divided amongst each station with an ambulance based on the percentage of where the revenue was created. Now, this completely excludes Harney Fire Company. They do not provide EMS services. So what we've done is we've gone both ends of the spectrum. So on the left side, the left column, you have Station X represents 23% of the total EMS revenue for a year. That equates to $258,000 approximately annually. Over 6 years, the county will provide Station X $1.5 million. The cost to replace 3 ambulances is anywhere from $900,000 to over $1 million. I'm figuring anywhere from $300,000 to $350,000 per ambulance. If they were to replace those ambulances in 6 years, Station X would end up with a surplus of county funds of anywhere from $502,000 to $900,000 after purchasing the 3 ambulances. But if you go on the other end of the spectrum, Station Y, who only represents 3% of the EMS revenue, and we have 4 stations that are at the 3% range, after 6 years and the cost of 1 ambulance, they would actually still have a deficit if they wanted to replace their 1 ambulance of $98,000, probably requiring the assistance of more fundraising activity, a commercial loan or a loan through the county. They would be $98,000 short. That also provides the opportunity, or a lot of stations may make their ambulances try to last 10 years. And you could see that they would just be at the approximate value to purchase a new unit. So you can see on both ends of the spectrum, some stations, I believe 4 of the 13 stations would end up with a surplus. Many would still be short of the deficit. And I estimate 6 years for replacing ambulances. Some stations are able to go a little bit longer. I provided this to you, hopefully in your packet prior to today. This gives you gives you some scenarios. With the billing at 100% for the volunteer corporations, they basically cover all personnel services currently, all vehicle and supply expenses. They handle all that themselves. With shared billing, volunteer corporations would own the ambulances, counties would provide staffing. The county assumes personnel services and staffing in that scenario. The volunteers would retain ambulance ownership and continue to pay all the costs, including but not limiting to vehicle purchase, replacement, fuel maintenance, insurance, liability, and repair. The 75% share that the county would get still will not cover personnel cost. In the final scenario, with 100% of the billing coming to the county, we assume all cost of all personnel services and vehicle supply expenses. Volunteers no longer have any financial liability, risk, or cost. A lot of the discussions that we have had regarding other elements of the MOU involve liability. Liability issue regarding these vehicles that encompass 80% of the call volume would be resolved with this arrangement of purchasing the ambulances. So in summary, all EMS costs and liabilities transfer from the volunteers to the county. Volunteers can focus on fundraising efforts on large apparatus in their stations. The county may place additional units in service for high demand periods. EMS revenue needs to follow the employees to reduce that budget shortfall. And most of all, it's fair to all stations. So 2 questions that continue to come up when this proposal is discussed is, one, why not let the ambulance depreciate and then start the purchase of the ambulance purchasing? The EMS billing needs to support the cost of the employees to reduce the budget shortfall. As I've said before, many stations are utilizing the 24/7 money, the EMS billing revenue, and some are even going into their fundraising to fund their employees. We're in the same position. We're going to pay possibly higher salaries than a lot of the stations and a larger benefit package. So we're in the same position as the volunteers, as that revenue would help reduce that budget shortfall. The other question, why purchase ambulances versus using money for additional personnel? The money used to purchase ambulances is one-time funding versus the annual commitment of budgeting for personnel. So it's just one-time fund availability, and then we would address that issue through the annual replacement plan through fleet, where we may not have to address that issue again for another 6 years per unit. So those are some of the questions that we can continuously receive. And that's what I have for you today on why we've proposed purchasing the ambulances. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I have one, Bob.
Yes.
Looking at, there's a reason those ambulances can last up to 10 years. And that's because, those stations have ownership. They work to raise that money. They work to keep those things spotless and in top-notch condition. They have ownership of them. And at least some ownership in there usually gives us some, we're going to take really good care of this. The way, if the county owns 100% of it, and it's county employees, and say, well, the county will just buy us another one. That type mentality can set in. So is there a way, at least like a 10% ownership for those companies or something, or is that, is it even possible? I don't know, but I just, I've always supported the volunteer associations because they work hard to get that money, raise that money, and an ambulance isn't cheap. Neither is a piece of apparatus, but they really maintain and take care of those pieces of equipment.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. The volunteers have worked hard. They've put a lot of money into some beautiful equipment in the field. We're looking at this from a purely business perspective, and the fact that the EMS revenue would assist in that budget shortfall to provide for the employees that we are now going to take on to cover that service. But also, too, the ownership issue as far as insurance through Legit and the liability concerns that are constantly being addressed with in our discussions with the presidents would be greatly reduced with it being able to come over to the insurance policy. So we're looking at it from purely a business perspective.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay, Bob, really appreciate it.
And I'll be before you next week to talk about part-time versus full-time employees, as we discussed last week.
Great. Thank you very much. I know there's a lot of interest in that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're fortunate to be joined by Miss Dorothy Fox, Executive Director of Partnership for Healthier Carroll County, to share with us the community needs statement survey report. And I know she was on.
I'm on. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be able to share some of the results of our community health needs assessment. So thank you again for having me this morning. What I'm going to go over today, of course, are the results of the needs assessment, as well as the areas that have been prioritized. Oh, shit. All right. So for those of you who don't know me or know the organization, we are a private nonprofit organization. We are formed through a collaborative effort between Carroll Hospital and Carroll County Health Department. And as of today, both members remain current on our board. And we've been in business since 1998. So we're celebrating 22 years, which is just amazing. And I also want to point out that we have a very strong governing board of directors. So to get into the meat and potatoes here, I want to also thank anyone who participated in taking the survey online, if you were a key informant, or if you participated in the prioritization process. So thank you to all those who have done that. The needs assessment is actually a requirement of the Affordable Care Act. It's required of every hospital in every state across our country to be done every 3 years. I want to make it very clear that through the support of the hospital, we have a very robust and we far exceed those requirements. It is truly, I would say, a genuine attempt to hear the needs of our community. And I've always considered myself extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to really get into the community and see what they're seeing. So I'm going to be sharing with you some of the highlight level data that has been gathered through 3 main components. We have the online community survey, we have focus groups, and we have key informants. And the information I'm going to share is just what has been highly articulated. We've pulled just several pieces of information here, but trust me, we have over 100 or more data points that I could share. This will include qualitative as well as quantitative information. The qualitative data is mostly used when the sampling size is not large enough to be statistically valid. We'll also review some secondary information, such as community level data and demographics. But I do want to say that it's important to remember that we took the survey during a pandemic, so it may have influenced some of the responses, such as frequency of doctor's visits, mental health status, etc. Okay. The main elements of the 2021 community assessment were built from our 2012, 15, and 18 assessment to the greatest extent possible so that we're able to compare some of the data. We assess access to health, health status and behaviors, health-related community strengths and opportunities. The survey also included smart logic questions so that if you were only asked age-appropriate or gender-appropriate questions, and this was based on a broad convenience sampling. If we do an overlay with the county demographics in our response, you'll see our online survey alone had 744 completed. We were heavy with female responses. Our age was a little bit higher, and our race, we had more white respondents. We were able to really look at this and make an intentional approach then to our focus groups so that we could average this out and get some feedback from some of our more underserved populations or the populations that weren't represented on our online survey. You'll see here the zip code breakdown, and it closely matches our county's demographics. Westminster and Sykesville had the largest representation, with Hampstead, Tonytown, Finksburg, Manchester following in responses. One of the first questions we asked, we said, well, let me just describe this. So as I said before, we compared data from previous years. So this latest color here is 2012. It goes to the darker color, which is 2015, 2018, and then this dark purple color is our 2021 reports. So in this question, we said, tell us how your general health is. And you can see here in the excellent category, we have stayed relatively stable, but a small decrease in the very good category, which is offset by the good category. When we asked about poor mental and physical health days, there was a decrease, unfortunately, to no days, but it was offset by small increases in each one of our other categories. New this year, of course, was a question regarding COVID-19 and what was the impact on individuals and families. The biggest impact was worry and stress, worry about the health of our loved ones, and an increase in stress and anxiety. As it relates to healthcare, we saw an increase in telehealth, but 12% had missed appointments, and feeling depressed was indicated by 13% of our participants. Another new question we added this year was asked about mental health. We asked the participants to select any of the symptoms they had felt in the past year. The largest percentage at 29% showed feeling nervous, 22% felt restless and fidgety, 18% felt like everything was an effort, and 15% felt not good or worthless. A little bit about urgent care visits. We saw a significant change in urgent care centers. In 2021, we no longer saw them used as much for after hours, but rather for the urgency of being seen right away. This is always an interesting question. We ask people how they receive their health information and education. And what we saw was 68% received them from their healthcare providers, which is good news. Unfortunately, in second place at 61%, we had a lot of people that were looking at websites. And I'll ask you to keep that in mind as we go through our focus groups, because that was actually discussed about reliability. Here's an example when we asked about high blood pressure, that we didn't see much change in the diagnosis. However, we did see an unfortunate downward trend in the actions to control. So we're seeing that this is going to be an area that we can really do some work on. We talked about chronic conditions, and we saw an increase in arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, lupus, fibromyalgia. And then we also saw an increase in cancers, both skin cancer and all other types of cancer. It was also discussed here. It was also discussed very frequently in some of our focus groups. With diabetes, has a doctor, nurse, or other health provider have diagnosed you with diabetes? We are seeing a downward trending pattern with no. We have not been diagnosed with diabetes, but we are seeing an increase in yes, I'm being told I have pre-diabetes. Some additional information, I'll just throw this in there. Our respondents reported a very high level of health insurance at 98.9%. Also, 92% said they have someone they think of as their primary care provider. And then we are seeing a decrease, which is wonderful, down to 3.17%, that people stop taking their medication due to costs. So we're seeing a decrease in that area. And then in 2021, we asked a new question about suicidality. And we found that 2.5% responded that they had thought of killing themselves, with 12.5% of those attempting suicide. In regards to experiencing confusion or memory loss, 83.3% indicated that they did not have those symptoms. However, we added a new question this year as a follow-up saying, have you noticed it in other people? And with that, we saw a much higher level. We found we were doing very well with tobacco use. And then the last two subject areas, we've talked about substance abuse. As far as opioid use, we found that 99.5% indicated they had not used opioids that weren't prescribed to them. And 94.5% responded that they do not have a family member or friend who misused opioids. New this year, we added a marijuana question. 93.5% reported they did not use marijuana in the last 3 months. Of those who did, 31% had a medical marijuana card. I'll move on to the key informant section. Now, the key informant section is we're talking about our community stakeholders, our business leaders, and we ask them to answer these questions representing the communities they serve. We ask both qualitative and quantitative data. We asked about barriers to access, impact of social determinants, health resources, health promotions, and reaching those underserved populations. 71 informants completed the survey and participated in a moderated session. And 2 sessions were completed with leaders and experts, and 1 session was provided with direct service providers. I'll go over this chart real quick. Across the top are the 3 groups that were represented, and down the side here are the areas. There were originally 21 health areas, but I'm only listing those that were repeated with high frequency. The question asked the attendees to choose the top 5 that are most important to address in the next 3 to 5 years. Added as an option this year was suicidality, and you'll see here These four came out on top with 2 or 3 areas identified by, the areas identified by 2 or 3 groups: illegal substance abuse, mental health, obesity, and prescription drugs. Now, when I asked the follow-up question, if you could only choose one to focus on, we found that mental health across the board was represented. We also asked the key informants about social determinants of health. There were a total of 9 different options, but as you can see here, it was already narrowed down to 4. And in all 3 groups, you can see that affordable housing and employment opportunities ranked as a pressing problem. And when I went back and asked them, tell me just one, you can see here it is divided between affordable housing and quality health access. Now, in this slide, it represents a series of questions that are listed down here to the left. The percentage number represents strongly agree or agree. Those in parentheses represent neutral. I've circled the ones here that have received less than 50%, and that is transportation to medical appointments and access to local dentists. The next group I'll share with you is about our focus groups. And our focus groups, we asked them to represent their community in answering these questions. We had a total of 10 focus groups. 2 groups were new this year. The groups represented transitional aged youth. We had 2 behavioral health groups. We had 2 African Americans, a community of color. We had a Hispanic Latino group in which the survey was moderated and given in their native language, which is the first time. LGBTQ group, and 2 sessions with the older adult population. In total, more than 50 participants took place. And with this section, I'll be sharing mostly qualitative information due to the statistical significance of the amount of people that participated. Overall impressions, over 90% had health insurance, over 90% had lived in Carroll County for more than 10 years, and over 90% lived in a single family home. Now, in those behavioral health group and our Hispanic populations, we found that most of those rented those individual homes. We asked the same questions we asked of the key informants, and what we found were the top 5 issues that they believed were most important. I'll go through each one of those with comments of what they felt. But I want to make it clear that these are the comments from our focus groups. So most of these are quotes. With alcohol abuse, this was a highly charged area for discussion in many of our groups. There were many frustrations that the addiction and dependency and the severity of the messaging is sometimes lost with alcohol. Most comments such as, you can die from alcohol withdrawal. And the main common comments were largely about accessibility, acceptability, and being essential during COVID. Cancer, this was spoken of in every single group. And there were very positive things that were said for those who received treatment here in Carroll County. But of those who personally experienced cancer for themselves or for a loved one, there was an absolute exasperation about the inability to cure cancer and the difficulty of the treatment. I also think we have an opportunity here to educate around the types of cancer and the hereditary nature of cancer. Diabetes was another area frequently discussed. There's an understanding of the many ways that diabetes harms your health. Again, this is another area where we can look at hereditary and even more so cultural difference in food choices, prep, and significance of that family time. A very interesting fact we learned was that the cross relationship between dental health and diabetes, as many of healthy foods are a barrier to those with dental health problems, such as eating an apple or hard fruits like that. Mental health. Many discussions took place regarding mental health, and this slide just represents some of them. Untreated conditions causes neglect of health and wellness habits, lack of providers and cultural diversity of those providers. Lack of compliance was due to side effects, problematic refills, accessibility of the medication, frequent medication changes, and polypharmacy. Misrepresentation of mental illness in the movies and media was mentioned. And there was also a note that there are new symptoms emerging with the stress and depression related to COVID. Illegal substance abuse. We have received information that was new and in stark contrast to what we've received from our previous assessments, but was very powerful. and honest in the way that the participants shared with us. The general public seems to be able to acknowledge, and they seem to be informed about the drug abuse problem and the collateral impacts substance abuse has on our community. But there was a lot of discussion about how easy it is to obtain illegal substances, and that it's leading to the use and abuse of these drugs. There was a concern expressed about the deterrence or repercussions, or shall I say the lack of deterrence or repercussions for drug use, making illegal drug use more acceptable and actually seen as a lifestyle. And we even heard that selling drugs is becoming a lucrative business. We asked about social determinants of health, and again, the same questions we asked the key informants. It was out of 9, as you recall. But when discussing the most important social determinants of health to address, affordable housing and transportation rose to the top. With affordable housing, which I think is important, that only a small portion of it was actually related to cost. Most of it was related to livability and safety. And as for transportation, timeliness was an issue, but largely it was about the lack of knowledge about all the options that are available. Some additional information. How would you like to receive information from physicians? And that is, it runs the gamut from written to orally. So we are still going to be working on that to try and figure out how we can best serve our patients. One thing that related back to the online survey was receiving that information online, which I mentioned earlier. And it seems that there is real trouble distinguishing what is reliable information. The LGBTQ and the low income groups believe that signage did not reflect their communities. And this is our health outcomes overall ranking. And I always think this is important to share as I go over our county demographics. This is a high level comparative approach to health status of a county through the work of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation annual health rankings report. In Maryland, there's 24 cities and counties, and Carroll County overall is ranked number 3. So it shows you where we are. We're doing really well. All of us should be proud and pleased with that. You can see health outcomes, we are number 3. Health factors, we are number 2. And those issues that roll up into making us overall number 3. So we got to our prioritization process with a group of, it was the hospital board, the health department, the partnership board, and some other experts, leading physicians in the county. And we asked them to prioritize the health issues. From the data we collected, we narrowed it down to these 13 health issues to be prioritized. We prioritized them on significance and pervasiveness and the ability to impact. They were given this criteria scale of 1 to 6, and then they all had an opportunity to vote. The results came back with mental health coming in number 1, diabetes number 2, cancer number 3, heart health number 4, and obesity number 5. This is just a slide that shows it more clearly. And as you can see, number 5, obesity, kind of relates back to all the areas above it. I can open this up for comments and discussion, and then we can talk about next steps if you'd like.
Okay, thank you so much. A lot of information in a relatively very short amount of time. So, you know, hopefully we were able to digest at least the things that we wanted to look at. But really appreciate all the work that you're doing. Is there any comments from the group at this point?
I would just like to, I'd like to say, Ms. Fox, you did a wonderful presentation. A lot of information for us, as Commissioner Rothstein said, to digest. I like seeing the fact that the mental health issue is up there on the forefront, because I think it was a concern of both myself and my colleagues going into this pandemic, how people would react and what the impact would be. So it's nice to see that we're surveying the public, we're aware of it, and hopefully measures will be taken to try to address all these issues. And thanks for connecting the obesity to a lot of those other health issues. So sometimes that is the first step. I know that obesity does affect people in their mental health as well, not just the physical. So you did a wonderful job, and my sincere appreciation goes out to not only you, but all the staff and all the partners involved in putting this together. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So with that said, just briefly, what are the next steps?
Okay, so the next steps, we are building a community benefit plan for the hospital. It also develops into a local health improvement plan for the health department. So what's really great is that we're able to take this one stream of information and build all of the plans together. So we're not seeing redundancy or duplication. It's thanks to the hospital and the health department willing to work with us, allowing the partnership to take the lead on this and really developing one very, very comprehensive plan. I want to also mention that I have additional data. If any of you would ever want more information, please feel free to reach out to us. I also feel an obligation to go back to those people who have influenced the survey, such as our focus groups, and share this information. I want them to understand the results as well, so that they can really see the full circle that we took it seriously. So I'm available to present this to any groups, or please recommend it so that we can get the community all on the same page.
Again, thank you so much. I had lunch with Garrett Hoover late last week, and he also shares his appreciation for all the work you're doing. We have weekly calls with LifeBridge and the health department to talk about issues dealing with COVID, dealing with the vaccines and doses, but also other issues and maybe outlying issues. So, and your efforts have also percolate or come up during those conversations. So thank you again so much.
That's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. I know Judge Hecker is on, along with I would imagine Dina Black, and who else? Let's see, where am I? To talk about the FY22 discretionary grant application and acceptance of award. So I got Dina, I got Judge Hecker. Is anyone else coming on, or are we good? Okay. Who wants to start?
I will. Good morning, Commissioner Rothstein and all the commissioners. Thanks for making time on your agenda to consider the grant proposal before you today. This is a request that the commissioners approve a grant from the Office of Problem Solving Courts in the amount of $330,047.11, which includes a county match of $4,745. I've had the opportunity to speak to you many times in the past about drug treatment court. I know that all of you are familiar with drug treatment court. It's a good, I think Ms. Fox's presentation was a good segue to my presentation here today. Interesting to hear the focus group's response and perception of substance abuse here in the county and how it is dealt with. And so don't know who those folks are, but I always invite people to attend our drug treatment court dockets when they have the opportunity to do that, so that they can see some of the things that Carroll County is trying to do to stem the tide of substance abuse. And particularly since so much focus in the past year has been on the COVID-19 health crisis, we don't want to lose sight of the public health crisis that is substance abuse. I'm pleased to tell you that we have weathered the COVID-19 storm quite well. All things considered, we have not missed a docket. We have not missed a graduation. We have not missed our case managers meeting with participants on a weekly basis. Much of what we've been doing in the past year has been done remotely, and we'll continue to do that for the foreseeable future. But the program remains strong. Our referrals are down a bit simply because the criminal dockets have not been operating at full speed, and so we don't have the number of referrals coming in. But since I have the floor, if you don't mind, I'll advise the commissioners and those citizens who may be watching and other members of the community that the Maryland Judiciary returns to phase 4 of its judiciary reopening plan on March 15. So that means that will be open to the public on March 15 for all matters with the exception of jury trials. Jury trials are scheduled to resume on April 26, 2021. And so with the return to phase 4, I expect that our criminal dockets are going to get back almost to normal from where they were. We still have to maintain social distancing in the courtroom and elsewhere in the courthouse, but we expect things are going to pick up, and I expect that our numbers in drug treatment court are going to rise fairly dramatically. So I want to take the opportunity to, as always, thank the county commissioners for your support of our drug treatment court program. I want to also thank all of the members of my drug treatment court team, in particular, Dina Black, who without whom the program really would not be possible. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll let you know that we're looking forward here in the Circuit Court for Carroll County to getting back to a bit of normal, to getting back to bringing parties and lawyers and others back into the courthouse. The clerk's office is still going to operate as they have been for just about a year now on an appointment basis, but that's been working pretty well. It provides a mechanism by which the clerk's office can control the number of individuals who are in the courthouse at one time or in a particular area. So they'll continue to serve our clients and customers in that way. With that, I will stop talking for a bit.
Judge Hecker, again, thank you for all you and your team do for our community. The numbers that are on our briefing sheet is 247 out of 468 since 2007. In comparison to other jurisdictions within Maryland or the country, I mean, is this a good number? Is this an expected number? Are there ways to
average.
say it's about average?
It's about average. Our graduation rate, it hovers around 55%, somewhere in that range. And that I think is a reflection that the program is a difficult one. We expect a lot of the participants. We certainly would like to have a higher graduation rate, but at the same time, we don't just pass people through. We don't just let them slide on their responsibilities. And so I think the low, the mid-range graduation rate is a reflection of just how difficult it is to make it through drug treatment court.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And that is kind of where I was expecting. I'm working, well, I have a very close friend in Tampa, Florida, who is doing something very similar, but focused on the veterans and dealing with drug treatment and through the court system. And they're showing about the same results. So I appreciate that.
I love the model. There is a separate veterans treatment court program that we don't have here in Carroll County, but it does exist throughout the country, and I think in a couple of jurisdictions in the state. And one nice aspect of that veterans treatment court model is that each veteran is assigned a mentor, a veteran who has walked the walk and can talk the talk. And I think that's instrumental to those particular programs. And it's really a great aspect of those programs.
I appreciate this. And so now a couple things. One, and I know that model, and I can send you an article that I wrote on stress and anxiety and issues. And
I would love to see it.
Should we have a veterans treatment court system here in Carroll County? Is that something that you believe should be pursued?
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I would say that when I've considered that in the past, the two concerns. One is resources. Do we have enough resources? Can we dedicate a judge to doing that? Can we assemble a team and have enough financial resources to manage that? And I don't know how much demand there will be, if there's enough demand in our county to support a separate veterans treatment court program. So I would probably say, I mean, we certainly have had veterans in our drug treatment court program.
Sure.
We don't offer a veteran as a mentor in that program, but we certainly, their past military experience is central to a lot of the treatment that is the treatment plan that's set forth for them. So
Okay, maybe on a different time, different place, we can further this
Yeah.
discussion, and I appreciate
I'd be
that.
happy to talk to you about it.
Yes, sir. Any other comments?
Judge Hecker, I'm glad you don't have a demand for the Veterans Court. That says a lot here in Carroll County. But you've done a tremendous job, I think, and you inherited this a few years ago and taken it and run with it. Your rate of success, a year or two out, is running a what percentage?
The recidivism rate,
Yes.
we sort of track those informally, but our recidivism rate for individuals who have graduated from drug treatment court is less than 30%, I believe, the last time I looked. So, which is much better than the recidivism rate for individuals who have not been through drug treatment court.
Right. And I know it's a lot of time and effort, but it pays off for the success you get.
It does.
And with
It
that, I'd
does.
like
And
to
it's
move-
a cost
Board of-
savings as well from a purely pragmatic standpoint.
I'd like to move that the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of FY22 Office of Problem Solving Courts Discretionary Grant Application and accept the award.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion amongst the four of us? Seeing, hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Thank you so much, Judge, and the entire team
Thank
for all
you.
you do.
Look forward to seeing everybody in
Thank you.
person sometime soon.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
Okay, now let's move on to have a discussion on the Exploration Commons financial presentation. I believe we're going to have Andrea on, along with Tony and Bob, Tony Eckert and Bob Kuntz. I see Tony. Okay, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3. Are we gonna, do we got Bob coming on?
He's here.
Okay, we got 3 for 3. The floor is yours.
And good morning, commissioners. How are you all today?
Doing very well.
Oh, good. I'm glad. We presented a week ago on the building project itself at Exploration Commons. And since then, of course, that's moved forward. In fact, I believe yesterday the seal arrived for the elevator tower. So that's now on site, and we'll be able to see some of the outside construction move forward. So that's exciting. We wanted to bring you up to date on the other part of this project, which is the financial aspect of it. Exploration Commons has been built in a really strange environment. And I don't mean the physical piece, I mean the financial piece. And there have been quite a number of things we've had to take into consideration that I don't believe anyone saw coming. So what I'd like to do, if I could, is have Tony run through some of these financial pieces. We provided a paper for you to look at, and then we can field questions, anything that you want some more information on or that you feel isn't clear. So Tony,
Okay, what if we said you can't? I'm just curious.
what if we what?
Nothing. I apologize.
Advance?
No, I
I
said,
would
what if,
love to advance.
what if we said you cannot? So that's right.
Then I would
Yes, move on.
excuse
Bad,
myself.
bad joke if I have to explain it. I apologize.
Oh, that's
Tony.
quite all right. Go,
Tony, get me off the stage, please.
go, Tony, go.
All right, Commissioner, I'm coming to save you. I appreciate it. I appreciate a bad joke. So good morning, Commissioners. We wanted to share with you this morning some of the difficulties we've encountered with our fundraising campaign for Exploration Commons. And we've prepared a briefing paper, which I hope you have before you. And I just want to hit a few highlights on the briefing paper. Our time with you this morning is just for information only. There's no decision is expected. To date, the library has raised over $716,000 in private donations. We've secured $1,987,000 in state capital project funds, an additional $95,000 in federal grants, or a federal grant. way back in FY18, the library saved $150,000 in our budget year then. And so in total, we have brought to bear for the project $2,948,000. The commissioners appropriated $600,000 through the CIP in FY18. So our total secured funding is $3.5 million. The total project cost, though, is $4.9 million. Delays caused by parking issues, which I believe the commissioners are aware of, slowed our original timeline. And then everyone knows what happened a year ago. COVID-19 really removed the momentum of our fundraising, and it also disrupted the cost of construction materials. If you've gone out to try to buy a 2x4, you know what I mean. So we're in a spot where we still have 1.4 million to be raised for the project. And I'm going to repeat, we've raised $716,000 in private funds, but since last March, when the pandemic hit, we've only been able to raise just a little over $100,000. And while that's that's a nice amount, it still leaves us wondering what we might have raised had not the pandemic affected our community, our health, and our economy. So the pandemic has had all these uneven effects on our lives and also on our budgets. When we entered FY21, we were already on this wild ride of the pandemic, but fortunately, our FY21 experience hasn't been as bad as we had feared. So we do expect to have some one-time budget savings in FY21. We won't know those for sure. We still have 4 months remaining in the fiscal year. And we'll have to close out that year, go through our annual audit. But we estimate on the low side to have at least $125,000 in savings in our current year budget. It could be twice that amount, but we would have funds that we could earmark for Exploration Commons. And that's one of the things we wanted to present to the commissioners. If we were to use that money, earmark it for Exploration Commons, it essentially goes through the process. It falls to our fund balance. And for the library to access our fund balance, we need to have our board approve that use, which then also needs your approval. So we were hoping that you would support this kind of approach as we go through the last half of this year and finish out the year and close it financially. And that we would look then down the road to be coming back to you for approval of an FY22 budget adjustment to our budget, the library's budget, to incorporate this one-time money from the library. And that would help us close that gap. Finally, we would also ask that during your upcoming budget process, that you might consider contributing more to funding Exploration Commons. The money that the shortfall that we would have, we have a loan set up with the county, which we would borrow. But if we can reduce that amount, that reduces the interest that we would pay the county, and would greatly help us. And so we ask that you would include this when the budget discussions turn to uses of one-time money, that we would be put on the list of deserving projects. So are there any questions you would have of financial nature?
So, Tony, I appreciate all the comments, and sometimes common knowledge is not so common. And what I'm sharing with you is for common knowledge that the relief package, that $1.9 trillion that is going to be signed, 32.5 million of that's coming to Carroll County, 18.5 million is coming to Westminster. One of the uses that can be, this money can be used for, and I'm going to read this, is respond to or mitigate the COVID-19 health emergency or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, and aid for tourism, travel, and hospitality. So that may have a fit. And I'm not saying this is where money will be coming from. I'm in absolutely no position to say that. But what I'd like to do is provide you enough information to help you make the argument necessary to then move forward. But I don't know if you knew those numbers or knew that that was coming out, but that is, received yesterday. And, pending the president's signature, this will then come into effect. So I just wanted to share that with you and kind of feed, food for thought.
Thank you.
I agree. The library took on this challenge, and we're very doubtful you were going to be able to raise all these funds even when we gave you or appropriated the 600,000. And fundraising, that's a lot of money to make up what you're doing. Even though, our library system in Carroll County, I believe, is second to none. We do a lot of, have always supported the library system. And I think Commissioner Rothstein just hit on an area that we may be able, we'll have to see what happens with this, how it comes through, but don't quit fundraising, please. Not yet, because this has to happen.
We don't want to give that impression at all, Commissioner. We are definitely not throwing our hands up and saying we're done with fundraising. But I know that our colleagues at like the hospital and the university and all are facing the same struggles, and they are experts at fundraising. We are novices at this, and they're facing the same type of dilemma. It's difficult to meet with funders and talk to donors and get them in the space, and because of all of the restrictions we're all observing for COVID. So, but please, we're certainly not giving up.
I understand that, and keep in mind there's 100 different people asking for that same pot of money. So we will consider that, I think, as we go into our budget season. So thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Any other questions, gentlemen, at all?
Nope. I think you all covered it. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you all for listening and for the positive response. We do appreciate it, and we can't wait to get this open.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on.
Good job, Tony.
To talk Chapter 34 in ethics. We're going to have a discussion, deliberation, and possible adoption of proposed ordinance amending Chapter 34, our ethics ordinance, annual certification requirement. And the one only Mr. Tim Burke is on to share with us his wisdom.
I hear a lot of people saying, thank God it's one and only Tim Burke. Thank you.
Thank goodness there's only one.
One laugh. Okay, thank you. Each year I'm required to submit a certification to our state ethics board confirming that our local ordinance complies in every way with their conflict of interest provisions as they're set forth in the state law. In reviewing our ordinance this year, it was determined that there were some legislative enactments made by the state legislature, which requires us to amend our ordinance to bring it into compliance with the state law provisions on conflict of interest. I also took the opportunity to make some changes which were permitted by the State Ethics Commission to simplify our ordinance and make it a little more forgiving in certain areas, again, consistent with the state law. The first change that I suggest was that we remove the the publicly traded mutual funds from the definition of interest, which you have to disclose every year on your financial statement. In other words, you shouldn't have to disclose your interest in a publicly traded mutual fund because any action that you take as a county commissioner is not going to affect a nationally traded fund like the Fidelity Fund or the Vanguard mutual funds. So there really is no reason for you to disclose that. The second suggestion I made was not a suggestion, it was a required change, and that confirms a conflict of interest. It confirms, basically, it involves our conflict of interest provisions, and it prohibits you from officials, and you, officials would be like appointed BZA representatives or BZA chairmen, from soliciting our purchasing department on behalf of a particular lobbying firm. In other words, we don't want you or an appointed official lobbying our purchasing department that we should be hiring a particular lobbying firm, or it doesn't have to be our purchasing department. You shouldn't be lobbying. You shouldn't be lobbying our county commissioners, other county commissioners, to hire a particular lobbying firm. Second of all, it's you require that the appointed officials, such as Board of Zoning Appeals, liquor board members, are prohibited from soliciting election contributions. So if a liquor board member is deciding to run for a state or local office, they're prohibited, as they're sitting as a liquor board member, from soliciting election contributions. And also elected officials, including the Board of County Commissioners, are prohibited from using public resources to solicit election contributions. That's pretty much understood, but the state law requires that you lay it out in your conflict of interest provisions. The final required change from our state ethics commission involves former county commissioners. You should not be allowed to assist or represent a party for money in a matter that was a subject of legislative action or 1 year following the period you leave office. So it's a lobbying provision in effect. So if you're working on a solar matter or something to that effect, you shouldn't be able to come in for a period of 1 year with a solar company and say, oh, you need to go revisit the solar ordinance you passed in 2018 when I was a county commissioner. And here's why.
Does that apply to the whole list here or just the elected county officials, that last one?
Former county, elected.
But that wouldn't apply to the rest of the officials and employees?
Yes, officials would include appointees.
Okay, so at 1 year after termination of employment or leaving, they could not come back and for money lobby for anything. And that would include boards and commissions?
If it's a matter that they participated in while they were in office.
Interesting.
So as I said, the solar matter, if the county commissioners are considering a solar bill, a solar amendment, they shouldn't be allowed to come back for a period of 1 year to lobby for or against, amendments to that particular amendment, because they were involved in the actual crafting of the ordinance.
But that's only if they were receiving some financial consideration for doing that lobbying. If they were to come back on their own and lobby, then that's fine.
That's right. You have to be representing another party.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's a lot of people
Yeah.
that once they leave, that
Right.
restricts them a year from
Yeah.
taking financial. No, okay. Just,
I mean, the
and
fact
Tim,
is,
you're part of
yeah.
this too.
Yeah.
So I mean, we may not have that subject matter expertise in a specific, but you're right. Appointed officials do, and for them to either move on, retire, whatever, it restricts them for that 1 year.
Yeah.
On a specific area if they were dealing with it beforehand. Okay.
The
Okay,
next-
as long-
Go ahead. The next
No,
is sort
please.
of go ahead. Someone was speaking.
Nope, it's all you.
Okay. The next involves ex-lobbyists. Let's suppose an ex-lobbyist wants to sit as a county commissioner or wants to be appointed to a board. Again, they're prohibited for a period of 1 year from participating in any matter that they lobbied on behalf of while they were in their lobbying career. So a liquor board, the person who wants to be on the liquor board cannot sit and hear a case involving Chili's if they lobbied for Chili's on a particular matter before the liquor board for a period of 1 year. That makes sense?
Okay.
Okay. Finally, the other important involves our procurement provisions. Currently, there's a procurement provision in the ethics ordinance that prohibits individuals or parties who are engaged by the county to draft specifications for requests for proposals or for invitation for bids. They're prohibited from submitting a proposal for the actual project. So if you design, as I said, an office building or a stormwater pond, you cannot then participate in the actual bids for the actual project. I'm suggesting that we remove that from the ethics ordinance. It is not required by the state to be there, and send it to procurement and to determine whether they would like to incorporate that or a similar provision in our procurement provisions, because people typically don't go right to the ethics ordinance when they're doing their procurement. They look to the county's procurement policy to see what is required of them. So that's something that take it out of the ethics ordinance and possibly incorporate it into our procurement article.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good. Yeah, let them consider putting it in to the procurement policy. It doesn't necessarily belong. Yeah. Okay.
Next, we had a public hearing on the 25th of February. The board voted to hold the record open for 10 days for additional public comments. Our office did not receive any public comments, and I'm not aware of any from the county commissioners receiving any public comments. So at this point, it's appropriate for the board to consider whether or not to adopt the ordinance amendments as proposed, or some of them, all of them, none of them. I hope that you would adopt the required ones so that I can make the certification, but it's up to the board.
Okay. Any further discussion? Comments, deliberation?
It seems appropriate. There's a lot of people who have to live under this ordinance and under this chapter, and if we make those few changes and adopt those proposals, we should be in good shape. So I'll move the board adopt the proposed amendments to Chapter 34 Ethics.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and second on the floor. Anything else? Further discussion? Tim, appreciate the time. Appreciate the, the conversation and, specifics on the changes. Okay. Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
We got 4-0. Okay. Let's move on. I think we're going to have Ms. Eisenberg, Mr. Devilbiss, and Jack Liburn come on. Introducing a proposed text amendment to the I-1 Industry 1 District to modify the industrial park provision, section 158.156. And I see all three of you on. And Linda, did you want to start?
Sure. Good morning, commissioners. And yes, today I have with me Jack Liburn, Director of Economic Development, and Tom Devilbiss, Director of Land and Resource Management, for a few more weeks. So we're here before you today in response to a letter received from Brooks Leahy on February 6th. He submitted a text amendment proposal for the I-1 Industrial Light District to modify section 158.156 of the County Code of Ordinances pertaining to industrial parks within the I-1 zone. The modification would allow for the industrial park the modification would modify how the industrial park is defined and would allow medical and dental centers to the list of allowable uses. So currently in our code and in I-1 in general, in the use table, medical and dental is prohibited. In the industrial park portion, that 158.156, it is also prohibited, it is not prohibited in the industrial park as long as it's combined in the park, but there are limits and caps because it's considered almost like a commercial use. So what we're here before you today is to see if you would like to forward this to Planning Commission for their consideration to look at amending the text to allow this. And I believe Jack and Tom also have some items that they'd like to add to this discussion.
Okay.
I'll go first, commissioners. After review of this proposal, the first part of the proposal that clarifies maybe the definition of the industrial park, where it talks about 3 or more lots being allowed. Currently, right now, the way the code acts, you can come in and request to form or create an industrial park as long as it meets the criteria of it being self-contained development of at least 10 acres, it's cohesive, and has a common development scheme. And then it's approved as a single development plan. So actually, this amendment that they're putting forth that says 3 or more lots would almost be more restrictive than what we have now, because right now, it's not restricted to 3 lots. So you technically come in with 2 lots and do the same thing as long as you met the 10-acre minimum, and there's other criteria of a common development scheme and all. So while, this would clarify it for sure, it would be slightly more restrictive than technically what you could do right now, because there is no lot requirement in that creation of an industrial park. The second recommended change under 3C of that article would add the medical and dental centers, and actually it would be unlimited. So technically speaking, you could create an industrial park, and under this proposal, you would be able to put medical and dental centers throughout the entire industrial park. I don't believe, from our perspective, that was the intent of what we wanted to do in the industrial park through the discussions we had with you about a year and a half ago. I think we had some very, very involved and very good discussions regarding the what I call commercial creep in the industrial zone. And I believe if we proceeded here with this proposal, that it would ensure that there is commercial creep, and possibly for the medical dental centers, you could have complete overrun of an industrial park by creating a situation where you could create a whole industrial park with just these uses and not any industrial. So currently now the code allows for these uses with a 20% cap over the entire industrial park, along with other commercial uses. And so I think staff with the Land and Resource Management would much rather see it remain like it is now with the 20% cap than allow it to be basically unlimited as the proposal suggests. Thanks.
Okay. Jack? Jack, do you have any comments? Yeah, there you go.
Yes, I do. About a year or so ago, when we were talking about this, the one thing that we didn't want to do was have an industrial park full of commercial uses. And we said, we talked about it, my recommendation is to keep it at a 20%. And I have no problem with medical or any kind of use like that, as long as, you put all the commercial together and it doesn't go more than 20%. I'd have real heartburn if you open it up and you could have, industrial park with all these conditional uses, and you could, that would be a commercial park. It would be a retail strip center, let's say, and that's what we don't want. So my recommendation to you is if we can keep it at the 20%, because I think some of those uses, do fit in the IR zone. But, I hate to see, and I talked about it a year or so ago, all our industrial area, which we don't have a lot, become retail. And it's really kind of retail. So I like to see the way it is and keep it, 20%, no more than 20%.
Okay, so it sounds, from Tom, what you said, there's actually 2 parts to this. One is the amount of lots, and 2 is the percentages. Is this meeting the needs? Because, there's a targeted area that's, we're looking at. And that's why Mr. Leahy came with this request. I'm just curious. Are you telling us not to go forward with this text amendment?
I would never be so bold as to tell you not to, sir. What I'm doing is providing you information and feedback from the staff and Land and Resource Management. And again, we participated in those discussions with you where, you know, the amount of commercial which has influenced our industrial zones historically. And again, I think all you have to do is look just south or just around the intersection of Route 32 and 26 and realize what it was like 30 years ago and what it is now. Basically, it was industrially zoned, and now we have all commercial uses.
Right.
That what can happen if you kind of digress. And I really feel, Commissioner, and personal recommendation, that this is a digression in what we talked about with you just a year and a half ago. That we are allowing that, again, creep to come back in. So what I would suggest is that you can place the first part of it, which is the 3 lots or more, which again, I say is actually more restrictive than it is now. I'm not as concerned about that, but the commercial part of it, which allows 100%, I really feel is problematic. Absolutely.
But I have to say, I
Keep in
remember
mind,
this
too, if I could, keep in mind, this will be applied countywide. So I know
Yeah.
this is introduced in a particular region, but it is a countywide. This will apply countywide to all industrial parks.
But I was gonna, yeah, I remember discussions we had about this, and we put limits on there for a specific reason. I don't see any reason to make any changes. From my perspective, I would not forward this letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I just don't think it's necessary. I think we keep what we discussed about a year and a half ago. I don't see a reason to change it.
Jack?
What do you think,
Hey,
Commissioner Weaver?
Commissioners, I agree with Tom's assessment on this.
Oh, I apologize. Commissioner Weaver?
Oh, I thought you were about to say
Yeah.
something. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you're recommending it was proposed and we say, thank you very much, and we keep it as is. That's what all three of you are pretty much telling me, right? Or telling us.
Well, I think what we're saying is if you do forward it through, make the strong recommendation that the cap be instituted as part of the change. So right now, as the proposal is written on 158.156, they added a new bullet to 3, which allows the following principal permitted uses by right without the limitation. And they included medical or dental centers. I think one of the things being suggested is do not have that unlimited. Keep it as it would be, that it is primary principle within the whole 20% of those commercial type uses within an industrial park.
Okay. I mean, the idea here is to allow for medical, dental, industrial parks at no more than 20%. Right?
Not just that at more than 20%. And again, this still has to, if you forward it, these will be the discussions Planning Commission also will have and give you a recommendation as well. But that would be comprised of the total commercial area of no more than 20%. So medical dental is just one of the components of commercial. I just want to make it clear that that wasn't a standalone.
Okay. Okay, so I'm still not clear what you want us to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking from what I've heard from your advice from all three of you is that we leave it the way it is. Therefore, we don't forward this letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their considerations and recommendations. We just talked about this, not that long ago. We set it up at the way we did, and I thought we did a fantastic job with that. And it would be my motion that we do not forward a text amendment proposal to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their consideration.
I'll second it.
Okay, I got a motion and a second on the floor, and the only
not-
discussion I have, say again?
No, not for.
Right,
Do
not
not forward
forwarding it, yes.
Because it sounds like the recommendation from, the three of you is that that's the direction you want us to go. Is something being misread, or, again, is another negative, hearing nothing. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was just saying, Commissioners, I think the code as it stands right now is adequate.
Okay. And Jack, you believe the same?
Yes. Tom has
Okay.
convinced me, and after looking at it, yes, I agree with him.
Okay, let's get that. We are recorded. So Tom convinced you. That's good. And I will,
Yeah, his farewell, he convinced me,
that will be etched in stone. So, okay. Roberta, you were popping in. Did you want to partake some wisdom on this or what?
No, just hit the wrong button. Sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second not to forward the letter provided by Brooks Leahy to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anything else? All in favor of not sending it? Aye.
Aye.
We got 4. Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about the consolidated, and I appreciate all the work you're doing, Linda, on this. The 2022 Consolidated Transportation Plan Priority Letter for discussion and potential decision. Linda, you're joined by Mary, I see, and the floor is yours.
All right, so commissioners, before you, I sent up the letter based on our discussion from our last meeting last Thursday. The yellow highlighting is the new language added for this fiscal year. The blue highlighting is what was added as a part of last week's discussion. So you should have that letter in front of you. So we did add during Maryland 97, Bachmans Valley Road to Maryland 140 in Westminster, making them aware of the Rural Farm Store and Station that will be put on Maryland 97 and making improvement of that particular stretch of road of 97 a priority moving forward because of the economic development activity in that area, as well as adding in on the final page under other matters, Maryland 140 at Mayberry Road. Commissioner Wance had concerns about the safety of that intersection, and we put in the letter that we'd like to reaffirm our support for finalizing design and construction of Maryland 140 at Mayberry. State Highway is moving forward with this, but we just want to reaffirm that we'd like them to continue to move forward. Saying we understand that the design was complete at 90%, but it was paused at the start of the fiscal year, and that we'd like them to fund this for construction. So those are the 2 additions added after our discussion last week. So if you are prepared, if you'd like to discuss further, for us to send the letter to Mike Fowler, for him then to get the endorsement of our state delegation.
I think we've had a lot of discussion on this. You sent us this letter prior. I'm sure we've all had a chance to go over it. So I'd like to make the motion, the Board of County Commissioners approve the FY 2022 Consolidated Transportation Plan Priority Letter and forward it to the county state delegation for their endorsement.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second on the floor. Any, excuse me, any further discussion? Really appreciate a lot of the work and all the work you, Linda, and the team did in preparing us for this. Okay, seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Got 4-0. Thank you very much.
See how much quicker
Okay.
this goes when Wance isn't here? I don't know if you
Okay.
noticed that or not.
It's working. Don't say things like this. Still being recorded. Okay. We are now into open admin, but before we go into open admin, do I have any callers on the line for public comment?
One caller.
Okay, we have one caller on the line. As a reminder, the caller on the line, appreciate taking the time and sharing with us what you want to share. It is not a time for discussion, but we will be taking notes and appropriately be responsive to whatever is being, discussed in the 3 minutes. So with that said, who do we have?
Caller that's on the line, please identify yourself and speak up.
I'm Mark Widmeyer with the governor's office, and I just wanted to participate and listen to your meeting today. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for not taking the entire 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other callers on the line? Okay, we have no other callers on the line. Again, Mr. Whitmire, thank you so much for listening in. For open admin,
That's a first.
what's that? I think he's done it once before.
He has.
He's been on.
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
Oh, okay.
yeah, he's been on.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely. A couple of things that I have for open admin. One is, we all received a letter, maybe a couple letters from the FDCA, the Freedom District Advisory Group that's down there. I really appreciate all that they're doing. You know, the organization, their commitment to the community. They have meetings. They invite us to the meetings. They invite our staff to the meetings. Very similar to Finksburg, very similar to Charles Carroll up in Commissioner Wance's district. I applaud the communities gathering for specific topics, having these meetings, and then bringing us into those meetings, you know, for our insight, for our candid thoughts, and also bringing staff. It goes a long ways. The town halls that we conduct are typically for very specific projects that are affecting the entire county, like the Piney Run, you know, is a very specific town hall. The COVID-19 vaccination town hall we did on Tuesday. So I, again, applaud those groups in the community. I guess, advocate for groups to do that and community groups to do that because it goes a long ways. Nobody knows the community better than the neighbors in that community.
And you realize we're the only representation they have. They're not incorporated. They don't have a
That's
mayor or
right.
a council. They have a commissioner to represent them. They pull together, bring their concerns to us, which is then our responsibility to bring it to this board. And I deal with FPAC quite a bit, and Finksburg Area Planning Council is tremendous source of knowledge to me. And I applaud what they do.
Same as
happening in
FDCA.
Freedom.
Yep. The other thing is, I got a phone call from the Carroll County Historical Society, and they have an upcoming event. I think it's in June or July, their annual event. Like the library discussed, the challenges with COVID-19 and raising money. And they were asking us, I know economic development does provide them some funds. You know, I don't know if it's through the tourism dollars, but they did reach out to me, and I said I would absolutely bring it to the board, not to make a decision on providing funds, but to say COVID-19 is hitting a lot of these nonprofits and a lot besides the small businesses. This allocation that we may be receiving, the one-time funds may be a way to help some of these nonprofits, but you know, again, I'm not saying we will, I'm saying we need to have these conversations as we
I
move
think
forward.
we have to see what stipulations come with that money.
Right.
We just spelled out. And then, you know, it's our obligation to look how this is going to be used in the county. And I appreciate them reaching out to us anyway.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we'll have to see what strings come with the money or come attached.
Yeah. I mean, I think bottom line is we all want to see people succeed. And
Oh, yeah.
especially these nonprofits and these community centers and these community advocacy groups. We're all about seeing them succeed because it's going to just keep us healthier and safe in the long run.
Keep in mind, this is just not, it's not our money. It's
That's right.
people's money.
It's your money collectively.
It's our tax money coming
That's
back
right.
to this area, and it needs to be used appropriately.
Absolutely. Anything else? I just wanted to throw those couple things out there. We have agendas to review. Let's see. Wow. March 15th, starting next week. We got nothing on Monday. On Tuesday, Commissioner Boucher is going to have a site visit down in Crimgold Park. Commissioner Wance will be attending the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Commissioner Boucher will then have a site visit down Piney Run Nature Center. Commissioner Weaver and I will be attending the Veterans Advisory Council meeting. And then I will be attending the Ag Center Board meeting, which was rescheduled this past week, and they rescheduled it for next week on Tuesday at 7 p.m. On Wednesday, the Baltimore Convention Tourism Board orientation, Commissioner Wance will be attending. It's an orientation, then right afterwards, he has the board meeting. Again, Commissioner Wance. Busy day for him. At 4 p.m., he'll be attending the Carroll Community College Board of Trustees meeting. On Thursday, we will be going into open session. We have a couple of recognitions that'll occur. Commissioner Wance shared the one earlier, and let's see, then we will go into I don't want to say the standard because I don't want to minimize the impact that they have, but the state directives, the legislative update, the fire EMS updates, and also our health department updates. Although they are becoming standard in when they're doing them, they are not to be taken as routine, and really appreciate all the work that they're doing. We'll then have a request for approval on a FY22 submission of mediation and conflict resolution office grant. Again, Judge Hecker will be presenting that. It'll be a request for approval, FY22 Local Management Board or LMB Community Partnership. Request for approval or accepted award of a FY20 Continuum of Care application. And our DCS or Citizen Services will be presenting that. Request for approval to hire grant-funded contractual housing stability. Again, Citizen Services. And then their, excuse me, Citizen Services will also talk about personal care services. Excuse me. We will go into recess and then reconvene at 1 p.m. And talking about exercise options to purchase properties. And then we will talk about proceeding to public hearing for the Piney Run watershed. Again, reminder, the town halls this afternoon at 1 p.m. and then at 6 p.m. specifically focused on Piney Run. Then on Thursday, we will have a request for approval to transfer some funds in the recreation and parks self-help projects. We will request approval for FY22 annual transportation plan from Department of Public Works. Bid approval for some equipment, some John Deere equipment. A request approval to submit a grant application. Structural assessment and restoration plan for the Bowman Bridge at Union Mills. And I expect Commissioner Boucher will be taking a tour of the Bowman Bridge at Union Mills, and we should be seeing pictures in the very near future. He does spend a lot of time, as long as he's on the bridges, not off the bridges. Request approval for library roof change order. Appreciate the library team coming in this morning. Update on the building construction projects from our DPW. And we will go then into close for some land acquisition. There's nothing on Friday or Saturday, and Commissioner Wance, looking forward to his podcast on the 21st of March. I think spring comes around that time, doesn't it? It's like late March or something? I don't know.
Yeah, so Saturday's,
That's right. Saturday's spring forward. Time change.
Spring forward, yeah.
That's right. Good reminder. Okay, on the 22nd, March 22nd, there's nothing. On March 23rd, we have open session. Looking forward to Mr. Zaleski speaking for 5 minutes on the budget. Now, it should be a relatively long couple hours on the budget presentation. On Wednesday, the 24th, Commissioner Wance will be attending the Commission on Aging and Disabilities. Then I think MACO gets back into session, and it's MACO's Sindai Legislative Committee meeting with Commissioner Frazier and Wance. On Thursday, we go into open session at 9 o'clock, and we'll be having a discussion on the FY22 agency budget hearings, and that'll be one of many that are going to be moving forward late March, early April. At 1 p.m., we then go back into open session. And let's see, we'll go through the routines. Request approval to renew allocation of Naughton Carroll funding to after-school programs and mobile crisis for FY22. And again, Citizen Services will be presenting that. We'll have our legislative update and fire EMS update. Looking at a loan request for the Winfield Fire Department. Let's see. public hearing on the Piney Run watershed. It'll be the follow-up from the week before. And that's pretty much it. Will then go into closed after our open on Thursday, the 25th. On Saturday, the 27th, Tawnytown Easter egg hunt at the Tawnytown football field. Commissioner Wance will be attending. I don't know if he's going to be looking for the Easter eggs or what, but he will be there
He usually participates.
in a very happy way. And then Mission Barbecue is scheduled. What's that?
I'll be attending also.
So Mission Barbecue, sneak peek, it's a VIP. They will be open to the public the following Monday, but on March 27th, right now it's Commissioner Rothstein, myself, apologize, Commissioner Wance, Commissioner Weaver,
Commissioner
and
Frazier.
Commissioner Frazier. I'm not sure if I'm going to be attending or not because it is the first night of Passover, so I cannot be eating what they're going to be serving. So I'm kind
That'll
of
be very
bummed.
tempting.
So we're going to have to figure this one out. But I may be attending, smelling, and
We'll take care of it.
saving. I'm sure you will. And then Commissioner Weaver will have the podcast on Sunday. Yeah, I know this is pretty heartbreaking. But Mission Barbecue is coming, on the center between 97 and 140. They're just a class act community partnership with all the men and women in red, blue, and green serving our community. Mr. Bill Kraus is just a great guy and ambassador for our community. So I'm really looking forward to them coming on board. Okay, anything for the good of the group?
Maybe Mission Barbecue can have some kosher pork barbecue for you on that day.
I apologize, Commissioner Busher. What did you say there?
Then maybe Mission Barbecue could have some kosher pork barbecue for you.
Yeah, I don't think there's been kosher pork, but they do have brisket and it's really good, and chicken. So I may be, we'll see what I'm going to be doing, but there'll be no cornbread going down this body during Passover. I'll tell you that much. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.